so maybe like let's introduce ourselves because it's
sure.
like a first, at least on my from my part, a long form.
Yeah.
So yeah, my name is Alex. I made like 200k at 16 in the real world, which is pretty crazy. I'm from Poland, but I was raised in England. And yeah, what about you, Stephen?
My name's Stephen Ronald Bell. I was born in Australia. I live in Poland now. I've done many things in my life. I was in the army. Guys might know me from my TikToks, SRB Speaks. Guys would know me from my Twitter. I have some controversial takes on that. I give a lot of my lifestyle things online. I like to flex. I like to post things. I like to get attention on there. And I like to post and educate guys and show guys what I've been through and what I've overcome. And I like to be motivating, so that other guys can see what I've done and maybe it pulls them out of certain places, because I have had a colourful life. I've been to prison. I was in the army, moved from Australia over to here. I've lived in a lot of places. And I've obviously become very wealthy, worth over $10 million. I have a crypto group where I teach guys how to invest and things like that. I have, my social media as well. And I have heard very good things about you from guys in the real world. So I'm keen to learn and see what it is that you do in there as well, which is a good thing.
Oh, okay, that's very cool. I just wanted to kind of ask about the army part. Right, like how long have you been in the army and like what experiences you had like during your time there?
I was in the army for about 3 years in Australia. Mm-hmm. I joined because my dad was in the army as well, and my granddad was in the army, so it's kind of was expected that I would join at some point. And I joined in. I was still quite young. I'd done security. I had only finished year 9 education, and then I moved out and started working, or I moved into the workforce, and then I moved eventually into the army. But for me, I think that it was very good because my dad was sick when I was young. He had a bad heart condition from when I was about 11 onwards. He was waiting for a heart transplant and he was very sick. So there's a lot of stuff that I couldn't get taught. So a lot of the stuff about kind of being a man or the manly things that men are meant to do, I actually learned in the army itself. So I do think that for some guys, specifically guys who are starting from a bad place, maybe from the bottom, maybe they don't have a lot of options. They don't have a lot of education. I mean, some guys can do like STEM degrees, and other guys, if they're realistic with themselves, might think that they don't have the aptitude for that. I think that the army can still be a good place. I think it depends what army you're in. Obviously, if you're in a certain army that's notoriously going to war or something like that, it might be a bit difficult. But Australia, I think the Australian army, it's quite good. I think that it definitely has its pluses and it definitely has its minuses, like anything. But for me, I would still say it was a net positive experience. And I've used that and a lot of the stuff that I learned there to obviously excel myself and I would say become rich. I've used a lot of the stuff, which is the discipline, the fitness, the mindset stuff, the ability to be around other guys, the ability to know your place around other men, not be loud or bombastic or confrontational, because in the army, like, everyone can be aggressive and things like that, so you learn quickly kind of your own place, which is a good thing. That served me very well. And a lot of the time now I meet guys, I know Jewel or Satoru, he was in the army and he was an exceptional soldier, much further along than I was. But when we talk and when I hang out with him, it's still like, there's still something there, because we both know that he knows that I was in the army in Australia and he was as well. While he was obviously much further along, is still have some sort of base thing there. I think army guys in general, even if you're overseas, they still find some sort of area to sort of gel into.
So like a connection.
Yeah, there's definitely some connection there. I'm not saying that it's, because obviously there's different tiers. I mean, I did some training in South America and we had training, and there was a Navy SEAL there. And obviously he's exceptional. Jewel is exceptional when he shoots and does things. He's had very specialized training, but still there's still something there. I'm more obviously very average compared to them when it comes to the soldiering and the shooting, but still there's still like, they know that you've done at least some training, you're somewhat signed off on, there's been some test. It's like if you go to a boxing gym and you're like, I've had a few fights, they know that like
you already have some experience.
Yeah, you can do something, right? Like if someone hits you, you're probably going to hit back. So you've had at least some training versus the guy who goes, I'm great at, I'm great on the pads, but then they get hit in a fight and it all starts to unravel. You know, you only know if you're a bit tested. So there's at least some sort of a testing process going on, which is a good thing.
I mean, I remember my father always wanted me to go to Royal Marines because
Here in Poland?
No, in UK.
UK.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I actually went to cadets, and it took me like 1 year. I've learned a lot of things over there, which I kind of enjoyed, and actually I still use today. But yeah, definitely not an army full time. So yeah, it's actually really interesting because army can teach you a lot of things.
I would say so,
Yeah.
for sure.
Like it gives you that discipline that everyone looks for. So yeah.
I think so too. It gives you the fitness is a big thing in the mindset. I think it's a big thing as well. But then for you, I think you're getting that now because you're exposed to so many guys.
Yeah.
You're exposed to.
Yeah, I
At
remember,
your age, I couldn't do what you do.
yeah, I mean, like, I'm still fat, yeah, obviously, but I understand that how fitness is super important now. So that's like one of my main priorities at the moment is just to get my fitness like nicely done. So yeah. By the way, like, from the beginning, did you know that you're gonna get here, like, to that level?
No, I had so many spots. I knew that I wanted to be rich when I was young. I mean, my mum used to tell me even that when I was very young. She would say, like, what do you want to be when you're older? I didn't even know what rich people did. You know, I grew up in Trogan South in Victoria, Australia. It's a town of 200 people. I went to 9 schools in 9 years. I only did 9 years study. We were in a new school all of the time because my dad was sick. We moved a lot. We didn't have a lot of money. We had a lot of it was difficult times during that time because when your dad's sick, you can't work for a long time, maybe like 8 years or something of your life. It's the money is tight and there's a lot of stress in the house. So you're moving a lot with treatments and stuff as well. But I knew that I would wanted to be rich, but I didn't know how. I knew that I went to the casino the first time when I was still young. I remember I got taken through the casino, and I would see all of these like old like AFL players or like older gangsters or older like mafia type here, you know, like but over there, and I would see them coming in with all the girls, all this cash, all of these like beautiful cars, and I would just think, you know, at Crown Casino in Victoria, they used to have this like big jar thing, and it would have like $1 million in it, and it was all in dollar coins, but you could see it as soon as you walked in. And I would just think, like, imagine being a millionaire. Like, imagine having $1 million Australian. Obviously now it's not what it used to be, but 20 years or 30 years ago in that case, $1 million used to actually mean a shitload. You know, like it's a lot of things that you could buy. So I used to think, how will I get there? But it wasn't until I got older that I realized, you know, that you actually kind of need a plan. Like most people aren't going to be millionaires. You know, and especially if you're not from money or you're not around people that have money, you don't really know how to get it. You don't know how to keep it. You don't know how to invest. There's a lot of things have to change. Like I had the mindset of a worker because my parents were workers, you know, so I had to change from the mindset of a worker to the mindset of like an entrepreneur or a boss or a guy who can kind of make his own way in life, like his own ideas and take his own chances and things like that. And that took a substantial mindset shift because from the army as well, it still trains you to be a worker. Like it still trains you to fall into line and work under people and not raise your opinion too much because there's a rank structure. You can't just run to like the CEO or the commanding officer or the officer in command or like, you know, warrant officer and say, this is what you should do. Because they'll just tell you to piss off. Like you don't know shit, which I understand. But it took many steps to start to realize that I needed my own gig. I needed to be around people that make money. I need to be in something that can scale. I need to be in some sort of service type of business that I can serve en masse to people, which was, it took a considerable time to be able to refine that down to actually start making real money.
What was like your first thing that actually got you that first money? And
I would say that PTing sort of opened my mindset because I left the army, had an accident, got out of the army, and then a few months after that, maybe 6 months after that, I started PTing. So personal training, I got my certificate for that. And then I started taking in clients for myself. And when you're a PT in Australia, you work under a gym. So you pay rent at a gym, but then you have all of your own clients. Like you're responsible for getting your own clients. You can run around the gym and ask people if they want to be trained, but you run your own schedule. Like if you want to train people, but if you don't, you still have to pay your rent. Your rent might be $200 a week or something like that. I think that's around what mine was. And then I was just taking clients off the gym or people that I knew and things like that. And I started to get the idea of, that I have to plan my own day out. I have to be responsible for marketing my product, which was my training, and I had to be, able to sell and all of those sort of things. But then obviously I did that with time, and I just got sick of training people that didn't really want to train. And I don't like the idea of PTing, because unless they're PTing, maybe they have a lot of money or they have not a lot of time, you kind of train someone and then they can train themselves. So you kind of have to, I don't know, it almost feels like you're giving them a service that they don't need. Like, how are you going to keep training them when they already know how to train? Mm-hmm. So often it's pushing people that don't really want to train, like they don't want to change. I used to like to push them because I'm from the army. I was extremely fit at that time. So I used to like to push them hard. And then they would start to break down, or they break down here first. They think that they can't do a lot, even if they can. And it just gets harder pushing people along that don't want to train. And I didn't like that sort of a concept. And you have to keep them almost in the funnel, right? Like you're incentivized that they never leave, because if they leave, you lose that client. So you kind of, it's almost like, to a degree, you're not really incentivized to get them great results, because then if they lose their weight that they want to lose, or they learn too much, a percentage or a good percentage of them will be like, I don't need this trainer anymore, like I'll just move on. So I don't like that sort of almost can be a bit of a bullshit environment to a degree. And then if you're training with PTs, the gym itself, I started to get a bit over it. It's a lot of meathead sort of stuff, like juice heads and things like that in the gym. So I moved on from that, and that, it was a good thing to learn the basics of business.
Yeah, so sales is like one of the most important skills. So yeah, definitely. So like after that, what did you continue with?
I got out of there because I met a friend of mine, and we would become great friends. And he was a sales manager at the gym, and he used to, so he would sell memberships and upsell and talk to them on the phone and things like that. And then one day, to be frank, one day we sat down. We'd been to a party, we'd been taking pills at the time. And then that was my introduction to that sort of thing. I don't know if they call it ecstasy, things like that. It's big in Australia. And then, I moved into, we sat down and said, we don't want to go back to work. Like, we're sick of, the money was shit. I mean, I was making, after I paid my rent, I might be making like 400 Australian a week. And that's after doing it for months. And that was not great. My rent was 150 a week, and I was sleeping shared, so I realized that the money was shit. I wasn't even making as much as I was making in the army. And then I moved into more of an illicit trade, and then ended up selling drugs for a very long time in Australia. Made great money, made a lot of connections, had a very interesting life, you would say, during that period. Started to make big money, get to know people that were making massive money in that sort of a field. Did that full time, had a lot of crazy stuff happen, and ended up in prison. Had a 6-year sentence for selling drugs in Australia. But that was, it's an interesting time for me. That's honestly where I learnt business. I learnt business from PTing, but then I refined it and learnt at scale from that sort of a illicit field. And now I have been able to move it into something that's legitimate since then. But I think that I don't regret, the path that I took. I think that everyone has their lessons in life and decisions that they make, and every action has an equal to opposite reaction. So if you're doing negative things, you're going to get a very negative consequence eventually. And that's what happened, but it is kind of what it is.
So what was your turning point that basically made you quit that life?
I quit that life. I got caught originally. I wouldn't say I got caught. I had an ex-girlfriend at the time, and we were together, and she went to the police on me because we broke up. And she told them that I was selling to 2 people, and then the police went around to their house, found drugs. They said, I was buying off him, pointed to me, and then it kind of toppled over from there. But I had several points during that time that I realized that it was an unsustainable lifestyle. I had a guy that was a close associate of mine had been murdered around probably a few months before I myself got caught and charged. I'd been murdered in Brisbane. I had another issue. Myself was taking a lot of drugs at the time. I used to do cocaine nearly every day, and I was gambling like crazy. Like I was just hooked on it. Australia, I'm not saying it's everyone's on it, but there's a considerable gambling culture there. So I had a massive addiction. I had a big addiction from when I was in the army, and it kind of never really went away. I realized that I had a big addiction then. I just didn't have a lot of money. And then once I had a lot of money, it's like pouring gasoline on the fire. Now I have time and money to gamble more. So I would gamble. I would go to the casino and just gamble till I was fatigued. I was fatigued where I was just like, I just want to go home. But I have to lose this money. I would have like $5,000 or $10,000 in my hand. And I'd be like, I have to lose this money before I can go home. And I just want to lose it, so I can go home and have a sleep, because I've been here for like 10 hours. And then I remember I had one turning point. I remember I was just leaving the casino. I'd lost a ton of money. Phone's ringing. I had a girlfriend at the time. She's like, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And I'd lost a bit of money. I mean, I had a lot more. I could have just kept going. Sometimes it would just go, get money, and then come back. But I remember I was leaving the casino, and there was like go to walk out of Brisbane Treasury Casino. It's not like a lavish one. It's not great. And then I was walking out, and they had a big mirror there. And I remember I was walking out early in the morning. It was like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. And I remember walking out, my phone's ringing, girlfriend's pissed, everyone's like annoyed. I had heaps of deals where they're like, where are you? Where are you? You've got to like come see me. I want to give you money, pretty much. And I would still be at the casino. And then I remember walking out, there's a giant mirror there, and I just caught my reflection. And I was just looked at myself, and I was like, I couldn't recognize myself. I was like, how did you get so skinny? I was in the army. I got to the army. I was probably 100 odd kilos. I used to take tests. I was jacked. And then I remember just saw myself, and I'm like, how did you get so skinny? Like, what's happened? Like, you're fucked up, like you need to cut this shit out. And then I remember just stared at myself, had like skinny arms, skinny shoulders, and just vacant. Like my face was just a vacant expression, and I just looked so strung out. Like, been gambling for 10 or 12 hours straight at that period of many days that would just merge into other days. And I had just an epiphany then that it wasn't sustainable. I had to stop. And then not long around that time, I had an incident where I was at the nightclub, and I used to obviously sort of was selling coke, so people would come up to me, and I knew a lot of girls would come up to me and talk to me and all of that crap about drugs. They'd be like, oh, I want to take this, or I want to take that. Is this okay? I mean, I know everything about substances, so I would say, just be careful, much the same. And I had a girl come up to me in the club, and she says, oh, my friend's passed out in the toilet. Can you can you come and have a look? Because I think she's taking something, and she just keeps passing out. And then I walked into the bathroom. Security was there. They don't care. They're just like, yeah, you can go in. And then I walked into the bathroom with her. And the girl was like sitting in the back cubicle, like sitting on the toilet itself. And I remember I walked up to her. I could see like that she was passing out. She didn't look good. She looked like really sick. And then I remember I tried to help her stand up and like walk around, and she was pretty much limp. And then like her eyes were not really open. She could kind of you could open them and see that there was something going on, but not really. We laid her down. Her pulse was like really weak. They called the ambulance. The ambulance took like 20 minutes to get there. And then me and the security were trying to resuscitate her. I was trying to resuscitate her because she crashed out. And then she'd accidentally overdosed on fentanyl. Because with cocaine, a lot of the dealers or things like that, I'm not saying all, it's not intentional. Some of them take fentanyl, and it's a different, it's only a hair, like a smallest amount that you can barely see can kill you. So sometimes they take it and it can cross-contaminate. So when they bag up their thing, it ends up in there. And it can only be the smallest part. So as soon as someone maybe someone uses the whole bag and it's fine, and then someone has that last one and it's tainted and they don't know they've had it, and then they just die. You need that spray immediately, or you pass out. And then the girl died, and she was very young, and that's haunted me for a considerable time. I would still see that girl when I would go to sleep, but I mean I still could remember her face, and it's just such a waste. And I think that itself was an eye-opening thing for me. When you're selling drugs, you're in that sort of a lifestyle for years. You better know that there are people around you that are going to die. Because it's often brings in those lost soul types that have a lot of issues and things like that. And it's a fun place to visit, but it's not a good place to stay. It's like anything. It's like a fun thing if guys go and get pissed on the weekend, but it's not a fun thing to be an alcoholic. Because it gets dark quick. It's fun to drink one night a week, but then if you drink every day, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, morals is one of the most important things. If you actually want to do something good, then it will just come back to you. Like the goodness will come back to you.
Especially over the long term.
Yeah.
I agree. A reputation takes a long time to build and very short time to destroy.
Exactly. And like after that, like you went to prison, right? So what actually you've done after prison? Because like probably people after prison don't really know what to do, right? They are lost, completely lost. So what happened to you after prison?
Prison's usually, I think, for many, it's like the end. You know, you go to prison, it's a very negative environment. There's lots of drugs. I mean, I'm not going to explain how people get the stuff in and how it exists and things like that, but there's lots of like substances. I mean, there's lots of addicts. People will always find things. I mean, they kind of just do it, like to magnetize the drugs. I mean, they just find a way to use. But yeah, so it's a very negative environment. It's very hard to take in a lot of like, you know, blackness, to be in such a dark spot and then suddenly be out in the wild, like released out into the general public. I remember when I got out of prison that I had a sensitivity to smell, because in prison it's like all the colors are the same. It's just like grey, green. There's really very little colors there, like a silver, you know, there's no couches and stuff to sit on. Everything is like solid metal, you know, so it's very sensitive to a lot of things when you get out. So I remember when I get out, I'd walk to the shopping centre and I would just be smell so many smells, like perfumes and things. I would be like, I'm like overwhelmed here. And then for so many people, like new people around and so close to me, I'm like feeling crushed, you know, like I'm getting smothered here. But then it took time, like, you know, conditioning yourself to get back out there. I had a 6-year sentence, but I did almost two, and then got out on parole. In Australia, it's 1/3. So you do 1/3 of your sentence and you can apply for parole to get out, as long as your sentence is under 10 years and it's not like an SVO or a sexual offence. Mine wasn't. And then, yeah, so I did my almost 2 years, got out, but I still had parole. I still had the police come around. They still visit you. Parole still visit you. I had 0 blood alcohol. I had a curfew. I had a tracking bracelet on my leg. I had lots of restrictions. I wasn't allowed to drink. I wasn't allowed to do any substances. Parole would come around. And I actually, originally I thought that was terrible. Like I thought that it was just such a nuisance, but it actually kept me on the straight and narrow. You know, I do think that, I don't know if that was enough time, that if I had have gotten out and only had the 2 years, I might have ended up back at the casino. But I was banned from every venue. I had a curfew, I had a tracking bracelet, so it wasn't a possibility to do that stuff. But before I went to prison, I mean, I was already like quite heavily involved in crypto. I already knew a considerable amount about it. I've been buying crypto since 2015. I'd known about it since Silk Road, so 2012 probably. Since the darknet market, I'd known all about it. So I already had a fairly good knowledge of crypto. When I got out, I had crypto, so it was already doing okay. And then I realized that it's something that I need to invest a lot more time in, like to learn, because I got out in 2017 halfway through, and that was the 2017 bull run had started. So a lot of the cryptos were going crazy and it was starting to be on the news and things like that. And people who I'd known in that market were messaging me and talking to me and things like that. So I ended up starting, probably 6 or 8 of us started a fund. So a crypto fund at probably the end of 2017. And we, had investor money and things like that. And we invested in startups and made great money for that, made great returns. But I would get cancelled because would leak that I had a criminal record, because someone, a rival fund, looked up our documents. We had documents from Asia, and they realized all of the company founders' names, found my name, searched it, realized I was a felon, posted it on the internet, and then I had to step aside from that sort of a role, which was fine. But yeah, so crypto has been a really great thing for me. You know, for me, it's in some ways probably kept me out of a lot of trouble in a lot of ways, because it gave me something else to be obsessed about. I'm really the type of person who's like into one thing at a time. I like to do one thing and
Focus
absolutely
on it,
be obsessed with it. You know, with crypto, when I got out and I was on parole, I would study the markets like 16, 20 hours a day, every day. There would be no like sleeping. And I was on parole, so I would just be sitting in the house. I was on a lot of stuff I could do. I would have my mum there. It was my house, but my mum had to be there, because I was on parole, and it was like a signed thing that I was signed off, and she was living in the house as well, because it's like it adds an extra layer of like able to get parole.
Accountability.
Yeah, able to get parole, because they're like he's being monitored to a degree in the house. And then I had the girls I had no girls when I got out. I just focused on crypto. I just went all in on that specific topic. And to a degree, I mean, I went all in on a topic that it was speculation. You know, it could have been a bubble and crashed and gone to zero, and it might have been somewhat of a waste of time. But I saw the value there in just the way that the world is going. I think that it's just so much easier to use crypto. I mean, it's easier than banking.
It's more anonymous as well.
It's more anonymous, yeah, especially, and it's just so much easier. Like, there's less friction. It's easier for me to just take my phone out, send you $100, than it is to go to the bank and do so many other things, especially if you're overseas. Like, you know, where separate banks, wires and things like that helps. But if, you know, the traditional banks, you go bank to bank from overseas, you have to send a wire or something, it's quite slow, it's quite expensive, it's clunky. They'll ask you what you're doing if it's a higher amount. Send 10K, they'll be like, who's Alex, what's this for, where'd this money come from, what's this, like, I don't mind, like, I have nothing to hide, but I don't like to give away everything, because then, like, once you give away everything, it's on the system forever, you know, and it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I understand. And like, okay, so you basically like kind of made it through crypto.
Yeah.
So what made you leave Australia, and like when did you leave?
I left the day that I could leave with parole. As soon as my parole ended, I left that day. I was on the plane out. I flew out to Mexico. I had friends over there, and I never went back. I don't think that I'll go back to Australia. Not because I hate the country, not because I hate the people there. I like the people there. I like the country. I just don't like I'm not going to say I hate the government there, because I don't either. I just don't like. I have bad history there. You know, I don't trust that I wouldn't have issues there. So sometimes with the police too, like in the police that I was dealing with in Queensland, things like that, they don't really let things go. So if you're a felon and you've been to prison and then you're driving a Lamborghini, they can be like, well, fuck this guy, like, we're just going to make things difficult, we're going to eventually arrest him. And it wasn't just me that they would harass, like, it was my family members and stuff like that too. So since I've gone away, a lot of that has stopped, because they're just like, out of sight, out of mind, like, fuck this guy, he's gone. But if I'm driving around in my Lamborghini again, they'll be like, what is this guy? Like, this guy has like, he's out of prison. Even though it might be out of prison many years ago, it doesn't matter to them. They're still like, this guy, like, some people find it hard to, because they live a certain way. Some police are very honourable and things like that, and respectable, and it is what it is. But sometimes it's a reflection of the reality of life, like that you can be a cop and you can be a great honourable person, you can do everything right your whole life and be on shit money and not be respected and not treated very well. And then someone else can be a felon and driving a Lamborghini. And it can be like their mind explodes. You know what I mean? They think that, a lot of people think that if they do everything right, be a good boy and go specifically down that path, that they'll get looked after. Some guys do that with women. If I'm so nice to her and I do everything that she says, then I'm building all of this equity, and like, life is just going to reward me. And that's not how life works. Like, it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. Like, a lot of people in the police and things like that, they think that because they've done so many good tasks that means that they'll have a good life, and it doesn't work like that. Like, it's not a guarantee. I mean, you can be good your whole life and their retirement can completely suck. You know, they can have a terrible retirement plan, or they can have an injury and then the police force or something completely turns their back on them. So that's I think a harsh lesson for them. I realised that in the army. I had an accident and I drowned in a helicopter thing. And then when I got out with PTSD, and the army didn't look after me, they treated me like shit and told me that it wasn't service related and I couldn't sleep and I had all of these issues, and they wouldn't recognise it. You know, it took a considerable time. But you can do everything right and you can play by the rules and all of that sort of stuff. And someone who does everything wrong can have a much better life than you and a better outcome. It's not binary like that. Like, there's a lot of stuff in the grey.
Yeah, exactly. And like, what are like the top 5 lessons would you give to like other people that you've learned throughout your journey?
I would say, much like you say, like, morals and reputation does matter. I think that my reputation in Australia, like, obviously when I was selling drugs and things like that, wasn't very good, because I realised that the people that gravitate to you are only other felons or other people that are like doing scummy crap. And then you realise later that they're actually not good people. Like, they fuck you over, or they do something in some way where you're like, oh, that's why they're like that. But I realize that hanging out with people if they have a bad reputation is a big mistake, because often you think that you see the good in them, or you haven't seen what the other person's seen yet. Like, you know, maybe you have friends or someone that you like and they don't really like someone else, and you don't understand exactly why, because you're like, he's so good to me, like he's a nice dude, I don't know why they don't like him. And then 6 to 12 months later he fucks you over, or he does something like snaky or underhanded, and you're like, oh. But now your other friends are like, why are you associated with someone we don't like? Like they take it poorly. I realize you have to pick a side with a lot of that stuff. Like if your friends do this, you have to do that. If your friends don't like that, you don't like that. You know, it's not you can't just float around to every group. It's easier to just have like a very small unit of friends, and then accomplish a lot together and keep it all centralized and internal, and take them with you. Like as you become more successful, and as they can take you with them. You know, it's often like a monkey branch system. Like you have a good run, and then you help them up, and then maybe someone else in your circle has a good run, or maybe they can get you on a podcast, or they can get you to meet someone, or they know people that you can meet, and then they give you a little bit of a help up, and then when you get that extra set, you can help them. Sometimes it's like financial, like you might have techniques and things that they can learn to make more money and things like that. Some guys are good with money, some guys might be good at boxing and fitness, but everyone in the group has to be good at something as well. And there's no like freeloaders. There's no guy who's just there, like he just hangs out or like makes jokes or something. That's not enough. You have to means test your friends all of the time. Like your circle always needs to be means tested. Your woman as well. Like if you have a partner, there is no she was good to me last year. There is no she was good to me a month ago, and now she treats me like shit. It always has to be like every day. Like you wake up and you're like, I'm means testing my life now. Like my friends, I'm means testing them. Are they still good? Like, is my friend a drug addict now? Or is he like a dope head? Or is he like gambling really bad? Is he doing something that's going to explode on me also? Can I trust these people? You're like, are they running behind my back talking poorly about me? And then another thing with your woman as well, like your girlfriend, or if you have a girlfriend or you have a girl that you see, you have to always be means testing. Like, is this beneficial for me? You know, and it's not to say that it's beneficial for you means that it's not beneficial for her, because you have to have a support system. Like you're becoming the man who's going to lead the house. In my view, I mean, some people don't want that, and that's fine. I like things a little bit more traditional. I'm not saying that I'm completely traditional, because my life is much the opposite in a lot of ways. But I think that a house needs like one leader, and then that doesn't mean that one is superior and the other, it means that they're worthless. It just like you can't have two captains in the ship. Like nothing will. They'll collide. Like it takes only one can do their job and the other has to do their job. In my view, people might not agree with it, but yeah. So that's my take with a lot of that stuff. Everyone needs to be means tested that's in your life. Everyone needs to be adding value, and that's not to say that it means that you just sit back and absorb everything. You also have to be reciprocating. You know, you have to be adding value. You have to be watching if your friends are starting to add comments and crap. Like you've got friends and they add little snaky comments like, oh, who do you think you are? Or like, you know, you're not that good, or like you've changed, or all that crap. Because life, we're all changing. Change is the enemy of the like mediocre, because they don't understand that life's fluid. Like life is like, we're always evolving, like we're always moving forward. Some changes are for the better and some are for the worse, but everything is changing. Like nothing is just going to stay. Like if I sit here for 50 years, I'll die. You know, like everyone is, like you're getting older, you're changing, that's normal. But then some people view that as a bad thing. They'll think that they have to stay the same as they were in high school, or they have to still dress the same, or they have to keep the same circle of friends that they've had for 20 years, and all their friends are losers. Like that's time, it doesn't really matter. Like that's just a time sunk, like that's a sunken cost. And with those sort of things, like the sunken cost fallacy is a real thing, because people think they've invested a lot of time into a bad thing, like an investment. Some guys bought Hex, something like that, they're buying it at 10 cents, and then they just keep buying it all of the way down, because it's a sunken cost. They think that it's very hard to get rid of. You know, they think that it's just going to go back to the price and that they'll be able to get out at some point, and often it can trend down much lower than they believe. And yeah, with friends and things like that, you have to be able to cut the anchors off, like people that are holding you down. And it can be family. You know, for some people don't have a great family, some people have a shit one, and some people have a good one, but some people who have ones that have issues, some people would say, oh, yeah, give your dad or your mum like a second chance and do all this crap. And for some people, that's not a possibility. Like their parents can be addicts, or like something's really negative there. So it's all fluid, everything's changing, but you always have to, in my view, put yourself first. But that doesn't mean that like you're putting people completely last either. But you always have to understand that like life is yours to take. Like no one's going to give you a good life. Like it's never going to just sit here and just get handed a gift where someone's like, here's $1 million, or here's a nice car, here's your Lamborghini, here's your like penthouse. That's not going to happen. Like you want things that other people want. There's only a finite amount of good things in the world. If you want Louis Vuitton bags, there's only a finite amount of them. Everyone would like one. So you have to compete with other people for that very thing. And as the world obviously gets, in my view, inflation and things like that, like it's only going to get harder. Yeah. It gets harder because the people who have exceeded or succeeded or like, you know, they're generationally wealthy, they just absorb more of the stuff, like the stuff that everyone else wants.
Yeah, richer get richer,
I
poor
agree.
get poorer.
That's
Yeah.
right. It's like a Ponzi scheme, right? Like the earlier that you get in, the better.
Yeah.
The later you buy, the more like you have to pay, right? Like the houses today aren't going to be what they were in even 50 years. Houses 50 years ago, obviously considerably cheaper than they were today. I just assume that everything will continue going up, like based on the trend, based on inflation, like based on the dollar destruction that's going on. So I do think that it's going to be a lot harder, like when you eventually have kids, that you have to be able to give them something.
Provider.
Yeah, I don't agree with the shit like a lot of guys say, oh, my kids are just going to grow up bums, they're going to be poor. That's just like feel good fantasy online. Like they say that to people to like try to brag or something. That's dumb. They'll be like, oh, but Bill Gates doesn't give his kid anything. He's Bill Gates. Like a kid can just walk in and say, I'm Bill Gates' son, and he doesn't pay for shit. Like you get so many favors in life, like just having a name like that. He doesn't need money, he has status. But yeah, so you have to be able to provide, you know. That's the issue that a lot of people are having now. Like their parents left them with nothing. Their parents didn't accumulate anything. Their parents were competing and they didn't even realize that they were in a competition. Whereas the elites and the wealthy of the world, they were competing from a very long time. The longer you compete, the more wealth you stack over generations. Of course you end up with everything, right? And yeah, the issues with housing and things like that is obvious. Like you go to Warsaw, even places here, the rents are crazy, in my view. People telling me the rents are up. It's a lot of where I live. They're like, oh, they're 200 or 300% higher than they were before the war.
I mean, you know what's crazy? Like, I know like around the price house water is.
Yeah.
It's like 15k PLN or whatever. 1% in Poland earns 30,000 PLN a month.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so, and like an average person earns around 7.
Yeah.
So they would need to work 2 jobs that pay them average salary while saving 100% just to get the apartment.
Yeah.
So like apartment rents are crazy, houses prices crazy, everything is getting more expensive. And poorer get poorer, richer get richer.
I agree.
And it's as you said, it's only gonna get harder from here. And I believe 2024 is like one of the most important years to actually succeed in, because there will be so many things happening in 2024 that might influence the outcome. Like for example, what's gonna happen in the world in the next few years. So yeah,
I think so. Everything seems to be accelerating. The timeline seems to be speeding up. There seems to be a lot of, I guess, they've got the elections this year in the US. That'll be a big thing. They've got a lot of stuff happening here, in my view. I mean, I'm probably not going to get into it, but with the Euro, there's going to be, in my view, changes in Poland. Like there's going to be changes into the future, which means there'll be opportunities in a lot of fields. I would assume that it will expand through here, like the Euro itself, because that's my view. I mean, I'm a foreigner, but that's my take, is that I think that a lot of money will get pushed here from that sort of thing, and there'll be a lot of opportunities in different fields, right? I think the demographic and things will change over time, in my view. I mean, I'm not an expert, I'm not from here, but it's my take. But I think that has both pluses and negatives, but the money and opportunities and things will come through as well. Like that brings opportunity. Like obviously they invest, like the investors, it passes from the old guard to the new guard, so then a lot of funds and things can invest in the country once it's like safe for them to considered, you know, they have their hooks in, sort of a thing. And there's lots of things change here with the war, like even in Ukraine. I remember I was here and rents went crazy. Obviously, like they opened up the borders and a lot of the Ukrainians from the war had to go somewhere. Like a lot came here quickly. And I used to see it, guys who I know have businesses and things like that, they don't mind that because the crashes the wages, right? Like if you're a coffee shop employee, you're a girl working at the coffee shop, you're a guy working security, and they bring 1 million people in that need a job today. That's perfect for a business owner because they're like, well, I can give them a job for less pay, shit terms, less benefits, lots of stuff, right? Because they've just got millions of workers that just need to arrive and need stuff today, like they need a job now. So that's great for employers. But then if you were a worker who was on X amount of money and it's just an influx of new workers, that's hard to keep your job because you can't compete with people who are hungry. That's the concern now. Like that's the issue that's happening in my view. Like a lot of the Euro, but yeah, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for sure. And I think that you're in exactly the right spot in the right time. You've been here south of Poland, right? That's where you were born.
Yeah. South of Poland, Wrocław specifically.
Wrocław. Okay, yeah, I know it. I've been there out there before. I was out there a few months ago.
No,
it's a good spot.
Yeah,
I think it's
very nice.
much more peaceful, probably.
Yeah.
Less like wild. Warsaw, I think, is a beautiful city and things like that. People are good, but it's a big city. It could be a big city of anywhere in the world, right? Like it's just a big city vibe almost to me. Yeah. Whereas at Wrocław, it seems more like a little bit more chill, like still a little bit more of a country-ish vibe.
Why did you specifically choose Warsaw, Poland?
I chose it. We were sitting in Jewel, Sartorial's place in Dubai, and we're playing pool, and then he's just talking about Poland. I had a few of my friends with me. He's like, I think Warsaw's a great spot. I think it'd be a great spot. This was, I think, just before the war, but the war was like very close. Like they were talking about a conflict there. And then I remember we moved there. It's really just off his judgment. I didn't have a place that I was going to go to. I didn't want to go back to Australia. So I was staying in Dubai. And then he recommended Warsaw. I said, oh, we'll check it out. We knew people there. Because, we knew people in the network and things like that were there. And the great guys. So we got there. They were very hospitable and they introduced us to people and things like that. And I really like the Polish people. I think that they're very, like, in my view, I mean, obviously a foreigner again, they're quite nationalistic, like patriotic to their country. Like you see they have is it Polish Day or like the day that they kicked out the Germans or something?
Yeah.
And they have like you'll see it on the streets. Like guys will wear all the flags, all of the gear.
11th of November.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's Polish Independence Day.
Yeah. And
like literally millions of people in Warsaw just walk with Polish flags.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think that it's great to be proud of your country. I think that's very, very important, and I would hope that stays that way. I think that once that goes, or if it goes, it's not a good thing. Like Australia has pride as well, I would think, for the country as well, and it's good to be proud of where you're from. You know, you shouldn't think that there's some guilt or like feel bad or be like, oh, I'm not proud of my country or any of that, because that's dumb. Like you're always got to be loyal to your country first, in my view. You see a lot of these like digital nomads or whatever, and they're countryless. Like they don't stand for anything. You know, they're just like, oh, I just move wherever I want. It's still like, I think it's good to have like a base. You know, like you have like something that you're like, if it come to it, like I'll defend this country if I have to.
And you are proud of it as well.
Yeah, I think the same. It's good.
Yeah, so like, sadly the government changed now. It's
I saw that, yeah.
It's more like a left government, sadly. So we'll see how it will go, basically.
Yeah.
But I hope it won't change that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that there's not too many big changes.
Yeah, but except for Poland, where would you live? Like, let's say there was... Actually, Poland wouldn't be existing, right? Where would you move?
I don't know if Poland didn't exist. I liked probably Dubai, I like as well. I like South America, I like the Medellin. I like Colombia as well. I like Colombia, but everywhere it's a little bit different. I like Colombia because it's like the lawless... In my view, I mean, I'm not a Colombian person, but it's still kind of like a bit like the Wild West. Like you can walk around, people don't really care what you do. They don't really notice you much. Like people, there's a lot of freedom to that. You know, you walk around, it's still a little bit rural. Like even in Medellin, it's still like you don't feel like there's nothing watching you. There's no cameras or anything like that around. There's no like monitoring stuff. It's still kind of you look out and you can see like forests and stuff. Even from the city, it's kind of like just in an open cut, and then around there's mountains. And then we rode out and did like a motorbike tour and things like that. I was with Jewel and a couple of other very good guys, and I think Medellin is a beautiful spot, but it can be a little bit dangerous, which kind of keeps it to a point though. It keeps you on your toes a bit. Versus Dubai, you put your phone down, McDonald's, leave your phone for an hour, and then go to the bathroom, leave your phone, forget it, and walk out. And it'd be very rare, like it would be a very unbelievably rare that someone would steal your stuff. Like it's very likely that if the phone is moved, it's just moved to the front counter and someone's waiting for you to give it back to you. And that's the thing, like people can work there and they might be on a few dollars an hour, but it's not really I'm not saying that it's not in their culture to steal, because I think everyone can steal, like if they're hungry and they're going to take shit. But I think that they have very strong laws as well. Like everyone knows, or they very much should, that you can't play games in Dubai. Like you can't go to Dubai and do drugs, you can't go to Dubai and mess around, you can't piss on like their people, like, you know, their beliefs. They have like the Islam, Muslims, you can't be controversial, you can't run around, it's their spot. You can play there, like, you know, you can have fun there within the rules, but if you go outside of the rules, like you'll realise that they don't mess around, they don't play games, they don't muck around, there's no fighting. I mean, I've had it where I was sitting at the Palm, and I remember I walked out the front of the Palm and I was waiting to get a taxi, and the guy was waiting for his car, and it was a guy had two girls with him, and then the chauffeur was standing on my right, was not the chauffeur but the security, was like a giant black dude standing there, and there's another black dude come up to me, and he's went to talk to the chauffeur, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and I'm just standing there, and I've been drinking, and he was drunk, and then put his hand on my shoulder as he was talking to the chauffeur, and I just turned to him, I'm like just pushed his hand off, like, don't rest on me, I'm not like a rest stop. And then he just gets like a little bit aggressive straight away, and then I remember I was just thinking, I'm like he got aggressive a little bit, and then got further aggressive, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, we're in Dubai, like we're at the Palm, there's cameras everywhere, there's people everywhere. If anything happens, like if I hit him, he hits me, like there's going to be problems, like you just very much might go to prison. If you hit someone and they get even slightly hurt, like there's very, very serious consequences in Dubai. They don't like fighting, and they don't like fighting in like public. I mean, fighting in the gym or fighting in private, people will do what they do. But it's no like tough guy antics or being ridiculous in Dubai. Like it's not the place for fighting or drama or like, you know, being controversial. It just isn't. Like if you run around with a megaphone and say controversial stuff, like you actually go to jail. Like they don't play games over there. There's no like, oh, I'm an American or I'm an Australian, I'm going to call the embassy and they're going to get me out if I get caught with something I'm not meant to have. Like they don't play games there at all. So it's just a crazy thing. Some people go there and think that it's like Vegas, right? They don't understand that it's glitz and glamour, and it looks like you might be able to mess around and do things, but there's no games in Dubai. It's not in their culture. They still have their, like, you know, quite strict like Islamic Muslim types. So they don't play games. You know, it's not in their culture. The rules are set. So yeah, Dubai, I think it's a great spot. I would stay there, but in my view, I don't like to stay there all of the time. I like to still be able to go out and travel and things like that. I like the desert. I think that it's got a great future. I think it's a beautiful spot. I think that there's a lot of good people in Dubai. There's a lot of good future there. There's a lot of good guys that we know. Yeah. Like there's a lot of guys there that are in and out of there as well. But it's just it's too much of a change from Australia for me. Like to go to Dubai, it's too different. I'm near the beach in Australia. I'm still near mountains and things like that. So when I go to Dubai, it can be a bit like just eating sugar. Like I'm just driving around in the Lambos, in the yachts, in the like Burj and all of these nice venues. And it can be like, it's constantly like too hyper for me. It'd be like living in Miami. Like it's too hyper. I'm in the clubs and things like that. I think that it would be to a degree easy to lose yourself into that sort of a lifestyle.
Too much dopamine. Yeah,
too much, right? And it's a beautiful spot, and I think that Dubai is a great future because it's very safe. I think that they'll eventually be able to make it like a tech haven or build a big tech hub there and get a lot of like the developers and a lot of the companies and things like that there because it's very safe. Like developers might want to work there instead of like London, where the prices might be cheaper in Dubai even, and the taxes, they have a lot of tax benefits and things like that, and they have a lot of safety. And Dubai itself is still close enough to travel and things like that. So I think, yeah, it's definitely got its great parts for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I see like 2 or 3 negatives. Like especially I was driving around Dubai, right? And I've literally seen like those poor kind of factory areas.
Yeah.
And it's like sad because you have all those McLarens, Bugattis, everything, like beautiful cars, driving around like literally I would call it slave centers, because like, you know, people that barely earn anything, like very poor houses and everything, and it's like combined into this rich city. So it's like very divided. So like one part of Dubai can be very wealthy, but one part can be like very, very poor. And also the air quality. I've noticed that as soon as like I stepped out of the plane, that it's absolutely different. And it's just worse. I started coughing after a week.
Yeah, it's a big change from here. I think with the dust too, the big change from Poland, the air here is I think very high quality, right?
Yeah.
Like you walk around here and there's not a lot of smog, or there's not a lot of
exactly.
stuff happening. There's definitely no sand. But yeah, I saw have you seen the storms there lately? Like it's more rain. I heard that they got some tech now that they can seed the clouds. They got something that they can put up there to actually cause rain. Creates rain. I think that they'll be able to change it. It's almost like a terraforming. They can change parts of it. I think that there's a lot of innovation happening out of there, and obviously they have a lot of money and they have big plans for the place. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see it unfold into the future. I think that they've definitely got a spot there. It's crazy to think that it was probably all mostly desert, even like 30 years ago, 20 years ago. It would have just been a very small city, and it's just continuously expanding. I don't know if you went to the mall there. The malls there just require like 2 days. Got to go to segments, right? Electronic segment is like half a day. Fashion segment.
It's huge. But what are your plans for the future? Like, how do you see yourself evolve?
I think the biggest thing for me, probably from here, I mean, already rich, it's probably legacy is a big thing. I have a daughter. I want to have more kids. I have a daughter in Australia. Probably the hardest thing is to be away from her at the moment. I've seen her once in the last year or more now. I saw her, I went to New Caledonia to see her. I flew her grandparents there, and my mum, I flew them all to New Caledonia to see me. I flew there, but I spent probably 10 days with her, and that's probably been the hardest thing. It's hard to have everything. Like I have Lambos, like millions of dollars in the bank, I have everything that you could imagine. I have houses, all that crap. But when you miss a person, like, you know, it's different. Like I see some people say, oh, I'm just going to have kids and I'll just have as many kids as I want. I don't care. It's different once they're actually born. Like you have to be a good dad. You can't just be a fuck up. You know, you can't just, it's a big responsibility. So I would like to, ultimately have more kids and create a very good family, like a big family. I don't want to have kids with a ton of women because that creates its own problems. In my view, I mean, some people probably can balance it, but in my view, I think it's, for the average person, it would be quite reckless. I mean, if you have unlimited money and unlimited resources, I mean, you can make it work. But for someone who probably doesn't have that, I think it's quite reckless because you're giving a small part of yourself to 10 women or 5 women or something, and with your kids, and it's not really that easy to vet them. The hardest thing with having kids is, in my view, the mother has to be good. Like you can't just have kids with some club rat or some feral, because then the kid's just going to be around crap, like bad behaviour. And I think with kids, they just become what they see. I don't think it matters if you tell your kid to do the right thing 100 times and then they look at you and you're doing the wrong thing. Like you can tell your kids to stay away from drugs forever, but if they see you doing drugs all the time, they're very likely to go down that path themselves, because that's just like that's what they've been.
Children look up to their parents.
I think it's like monkey see, monkey do. They just emulate what they see. So if you're doing the right thing a lot of the time and you're doing things that are good, you've got morals. I think it's much more likely that your kids will have morals. Whereas if you have none, and you're doing things that are like dishonest and things like that, it's very likely that your kids will just copy you because that's all that they see. They're like, this is what dad does, so this is what I'm going to do. Instead of sitting there and being like, dad told me not to do that, so I'm not going to do it. They're just like, I saw him do that, so I'm just going to copy it.
It's also subconscious. Like people act like who they surround themselves with.
I would think with friends too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like I had like a lot of bad friends. Like I was like addicted to weed at some point when I was in England, and basically when I stopped hanging out with them, I stopped like all the bad habits. I moved to Poland. then I got actually like very interesting friends that like were kind of on the same path as me, and still are, and that basically made me stay in a good environment. So like, who you are surrounding yourself with really reflects on you.
I think so too. In
Yeah.
birds of a feather, they say flock together,
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
that's very true. I think that you put a man or like a guy in a group, he doesn't know anyone. Like you put him at a venue, a new venue, or you put him at a party or something like that, and people generally flock with their people. Like they generally find each other. There's like magnetized to their own sort of a crowd. Because I know when I was going to prison and selling drugs, I would be surrounded by the people that did drugs or sold drugs in the past. Now when I go to the club, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, that people seek me out, that sort of type, because of the way I look, but it's much less than it used to be. I used to go to a club and have people come up that were criminals mostly talk to me, but now it's still less. Like I can still associate with people that are like legitimate businessmen and things like that, and I couldn't have done that in the past. So reputation is a big thing. If you have a reputation as a criminal or something like that, it's very hard to associate with people that are legitimate, because they're like, I have too much to lose. I might like him, but if I'm associated with him, people will think that I'm doing crime. The tax office will investigate me. Police will start harassing me. I can't associate with this person.
Yeah, and also like people's bad reputation also reflects on you if you associate themselves
Very
with
true.
you. Yeah, so
The mud splatters as well, even if it's not true, even if part of it's not true, it splatters on you by
Exactly.
being associated with them, and you get no upset.
yeah.
You sometimes stake your reputation behind the person, and then if it turns out that you're wrong, you can take the fall with them, right? Like other people can say your judgment is shit. Like, why are you vouching for this person that's now done a bunch of bad stuff? You know, so I think that it goes much both ways. Reputation is a massive thing. Reputation is very much what people say about you when you're not there, when you're not in the room. You know, it's not something that people say in front of you, because in front of you people are probably going to be nice, but then you leave the room and they're like, that guy's like dishonest, or he's done like scams or bad shit, and that rolls with you forever. And especially if it's very hard to turn around after that sort of a thing. But yeah, so I protect mine quite well, I think. Now, I mean, I never used to, because I sell drugs, but now I'm much more careful, and very careful with other people's reputation. I don't like to, if I meet people, I don't take photos with them or any of that crap and post it unless they suggest it, just because the way I look and my history and things like that, it can put them in a bad light, maybe. I would be very careful. I wouldn't like them to think that they didn't know, you know, that I've been to prison and stuff like that, because some people are in businesses or fields where they just can't associate with someone who's ever been to prison. I mean, there might be a politician or something like that, and just to get a photo with you could, even if it hurts them 1%, it's not worth it. Like it's not. You've got to respect people's privacy, and sometimes you'll see it, the Tates, things like that. Like people would see them and just start filming them and things that people film them at a private event. You know, maybe someone was at a private event and they don't know, and they just sit there and getting filmed, and they might not be doing anything wrong, but they might say something, and then they can make it into a snippet and then put it online, and that 5-second clip goes viral, and it puts them in a bad light. You know, it's very much that sort of a thing. I don't actually know how they do it. I was with Andrew at a yacht event. I went to a yacht event in Dubai, and he was there. Jewel had invited me. I wasn't there with the Tates myself. I was there at an event that they were at as well, but I met them. And I don't know how he does it. I mean, the guys were very respectful for him, but he gets photoed constantly. You know, and that was then. He's considerably bigger now, but he would just, it would be hard for him to like move without people taking photos, or people like standing there like filming him, or people being like, can I get a photo, can I get a photo, can I get a photo? And I understand if he knows the person, or like, you know, and he's very like hospitable, you know, he understands that, he seems to like it, you know, but it's I don't know if I could do that, because it would be very constant. Like but I guess that's for the price of fame, right? Like he's genuinely famous, and Tristan is another one. They're both famous people, so I think that it's
very famous.
Yeah, it's hard. It must be a big change, right?
Would you ever want to be that famous?
Not me, because I'm more like a private person. But I think with them, I think sometimes fame, it's almost like, obviously they wanted to be famous in my view. I mean, I'm not speaking for them, but from some of their actions, like they wanted everyone to know who they were. But I think fame is itself, like it's like a monster, right? Like it chooses a person, like even if they tried to pull away from it, the people kind of choose that they're interested in that person. They want to learn more. So I don't think once it reaches a certain point, you can turn around and be like, I just want to be invisible. Because sometimes that feeds it even further. Like people want what they want. Like Michael Jackson back in the day or something like that. People would just chase him around even if he just hid in his house. People would wait there and try to film him. I think it's just, it's its own beast. But I think that it must be a lot of pressure, in my view. Like it must be hard to go around and know that whatever you do, that there's a possibility that it could be filmed in public and people might take a photo of you. Even if when you go out in the day, like you have to go out knowing that there's a chance that someone will video you and film you and
like you are always being watched.
Yeah.
Basically.
As soon as you leave the house, right? Like as soon as they leave the house and in their situation, maybe even in the house, like they have their issues with the police, you know. But I think that they'll beat a lot of that shit, in my view. I mean, I don't have any privilege to any information, but from my impression of them, I think a lot of or most is crap. Like, you know,
it's all a lie.
I think that it's bullshit.
TikTok money.
Yeah, but I hope that they get like a fair hearing, they get a fair outcome. But yeah, I do think that will all sort itself out and they'll be fine. But I think that they have handled it quite admirably. You know, it must be a lot of pressure. Like it must be a lot of pressure to be such a public person, like a public figure. Because when I was going through court, it was my own stuff, but I wasn't a public figure. Like, and it was still hard, but I didn't have people following me every second and following me everywhere and filming me in court and trying to get a response. And, oh, he looks sad here. What's his reaction to that? Like they're always trying to like exaggerate to get a response and things like that. I think they handle it very well. I think that, it can't be easy. You know, it must be stressful, very stressful. Because the thing with me with court and things like that is, it's like there's a lot of paranoia. Like, and that was not being watched in public at all. So you would think that it's crazy. It's hard when big things are out to get you and they're not just big, like, you know, it's not one person or like, it's actually like, it seemingly is a very big thing. They talk about the Matrix, but they have a lot of, in my view, like wheels moving against them that are powerful people, not just like an average guy walking around.
Yeah.
So I would hope that, you know, they're very smart guys. They've got very good people around them. Yeah, they've got very good people around them, and I would think that like the truth prevails in the end. I think light generally does squash the darkness, but the darkness can just persist for a fair while. I think that they'll be fine in the end. They're very strong. That's a big thing. I know they preach strength, and that's a big part of like the message they push. And the thing that I respect about them is that they're very congruent to the message. Like you can't say that they're not strong. Like when they push strength, it's not just running in the gym and boxing and all that stuff like that. That's strength. That's strength in its own thing. But that's like athleticism and stuff like that. That a boxer can still fall apart in court. You know, a boxer can still go to prison and freak out because he misses his girlfriend. Like I've seen guys where they're fighters and things like that go to prison and fall apart because they miss their girlfriend, they miss their kid, they miss their wife or something, and they just can't cope. But I think that they're genuinely, like the mind is very strong, and the body is just for them. I think the body is a reflection of their mind, which is very good, and they've been able to do amazing things. I mean, their story is insane,
amazing,
and it just keeps adding new chapters, right? So yeah, I do respect them, and I think that going forward, it's in another tier. You know, they're not like influencers that in the mainstream. They're like in the political spectrum, right? Like they're important now. They have very big.
I mean, they are literally my heroes. Like they've saved my life. So
it's very respectful.
Yeah, they are literally like, you know, one of the most influential people on earth at the moment. Like,
I would say so for sure. Especially the thing that they have the strength is they have a lot of the youth. Yeah. The youth is the biggest thing to have because it's the future.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't boomers and things like that. It's good because a lot of them are making the decisions. Yes, but the youth are going to make the decisions for tomorrow, and I think that they have a lot of respect and an open ear with the younger guys, which is the ones that are going to be inheriting the world. So I think it's a very big thing. But how do you find, like, you know, obviously the real world? What do you think of that, the product itself?
To be honest, when I've joined in November last year. Actually, the beginning of November. I got my birthday money, so so I decided to join because I've
Done well off that.
Yeah, I decided to join because I just liked the guy. I really enjoyed what he was saying and what he was preaching. Plus, like my mom actually really likes him. She just believes in what he says. So I've joined, and I'm not gonna lie, I was lazy for like 2-3 weeks, first weeks, but then like the last few days slash weeks came, where my subscription nearly ended, and I decided, okay, I really need to focus now, and I've landed my first client for copywriting, which is like marketing, email marketing. After a week of like working 16 hours a day because it was a break for me. I didn't go to school at that point for a week, and made $300, which was like a beginning for me. Then I started like landing bigger deals like after a few weeks, which went amazing for me. And after that, nearly summer 2023. I've landed this huge deal that basically allowed me to make over 15K a month.
Okay, that's very reoccurring.
Yeah, reoccurring, monthly.
That's a big change.
Plus like a rev share on top of that. So that went basically amazing, and that actually got me to like $30,000 a month. Combined. And yeah, this is how it basically went for me. So it was an interesting journey. But like one of the most important things I've done that allowed me to actually do that was to focus on just getting to know people. Like I surrounded myself with people that teach me things. Like for example, you already told me a lot of things. We just known each other for like the last hour, right? I surround myself with people that I can learn from and obtain that value, because one of the most important things is personal experience. It actually gives you a lot of knowledge. So that's why I hang around with older people, much older than me, and yeah, I just obtain knowledge.
I think it's a good thing because it sounds like you committed yourself to it. Like you actually invested. You invested your money, but the money was one pain point, but then you invested your time, like your energy you put into it, and then you got out much big dividends, right? Like, you put a $50 investment in, and I don't want to guess how many multipliers that was on your investment, but it's due to your work, obviously, as well. Like you've done the gap, you bridged the gap, you paid, invested, but then invested the time. But I think the real world itself is a very good product. I've seen it as well. I think for the price, it's incredibly difficult to ever beat. Like no one can compete with that. I think that based on the professors and things like that as well, that's what makes the difference. I know Adam, the crypto professor, quite well, and I know Arno, is a professor in there as well, quite well, and they're great guys, and there's many others professors in there that are exceptional.
Andrew Bass,
he's exceptional as well. He's a great guy. I've met him, and there's just lots of guys who actually have done it in the real world. That's the big difference. I think professors. There are some that are amazing, obviously, at universities that were like retired from the business that they were in, but some it's a lot.
Actually, most of them.
Yeah, but some maybe professor might be before, but some teachers might be very theoretical. Like they're teaching you about business, and then you say, "Have you run a business?" And they're like, "I've never ever run a business, but I've read 90 books on business." But then once you start doing your own business, you're like, actually, there's a lot more steps than I thought. Like then meets the eye. It's not just about reading it, it's actually implementing is hard. Like reading is still, it can feel like action, and I guess to a degree it's action because you've stacked some data in your head. Of course you could have just Googled data, but the action is the hardest part. Being able to actually work for some people is very difficult. Being able to run a business is hard because it's all on you. There's no boss running at you being like, Alex, make sure that you do this or make sure that you do that. Did you do your work? And you've got all of this.
Your own boss,
if you go, I just want to disappear for a week and go to Ibiza or go somewhere and disappear for a few weeks, I'm not going to answer any emails, I'm going to do nothing. Your business would be sabotage, but it's very much on you. So that's the burden.
It's like all self-accountability.
That's right.
Like if you truly dedicate yourself to a certain task, or like getting good at something. You could literally do it in very fast if you truly dedicate yourself to it. So it's like one of the most important parts is just to dedicate yourself fully to accomplishing something, and then you can actually do amazing things.
And I'm seeing it with the real world. There's a few guys coming out of it that have done very well, right? Like there are quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, like I've met some of them crazy.
And young. I've met some of them like you. I'm like 30K a month. I'm like, I didn't even earn that a year at your age, which is a tribute to your work. It's not something that you're being gifted. Like it is, you're adding that value and you're being rewarded for it. Yes, but like I can imagine it's quite hard work. I don't know much about copywriting, but I do know that you've got clients.
A lot of creativity, a lot of like hours,
and constant,
sleepless nights.
Yeah, constant. Being able to think of new ideas and things must be, but it's a tribute to you, and then you can move it into other things. You know, it's creativity that's.
No, plus it's marketing, so you could technically do it in every single area. Like if you ever start a business.
Especially influencers now, everyone wants to be, in my view, an influencer these days, or so many want to at least have attention, or guys with money want at least to know how to build a big social media or get people to listen to them.
Personal branding.
Personal branding is a big thing now into the future.
I mean, it's the future. Like for example, as I've said, like Logan Paul and KSI are selling their Prime.
Yeah.
Yeah, which tastes horrible. I've tried it. Which, in my opinion, tastes horrible.
Yeah.
But the only reason why it sells so good is personal branding.
Yeah.
Because, like, if someone that I like puts his face on a product, then okay, I will like that product.
You know, at least try it, right?
Yeah,
so they load a product and they already have millions of subscribers. So they already have, even if 10% of people buy it, they have hundreds of thousands of people that will buy their product. That's a massive thing, I agree. And personal brand is a massive thing because it's just big for everyone. Everyone wants, as much as people say, I don't want attention, I don't want anyone to notice me.
It's really important.
The vast majority of people want some attention. They want to be known. They want to be, if they're an expert in their field, they want people to recognize that. And personal brand can, like you said, marketing can be the difference. I don't buy, I mean, I might try to, but I don't buy, average person probably doesn't buy the best product. They buy what's in front of them. You know, like the best person doesn't, the most knowledgeable guy doesn't get paid the most in copywriting. It's the person that everyone knows or like works under people that they respect. They're like, oh, maybe he does like, you know, someone famous is Twitter. So he can do mine because he does a famous person's already, so he must be good. Whereas there might be others who are better, but no one knows who they are. They're just sitting in the basement.
Actually, I've just realized everything revolves about reputation. At the end of the day, it's all about reputation.
Reputation's a big thing, and social proof of being able to work with people that matter, things like that. I think that going into the future, it's more important, and it goes both ways, right? Like if someone's done work that has sucked, it kind of goes both ways. You get one shot, you get the spotlight on you, you get a good gig for someone who matters. You got to perform. It's like you've been taken off the bench in the NBA game. You have a brief window to perform, but if you screw up and have a terrible game, you might not ever get back on again. So being able to deliver is a big thing. And like you said, accountability and relying on yourself and being able to perform under pressure is a big thing. It's a very big thing.